What is your favorite album by the White Stripes? What up, everybody? Welcome back to Jakey's Music Corner, where I talk about all my favorite alternative and rock music. I've been cranking out these top 5 album videos where I essentially just do that, rank my top 5 albums by my favorite bands or artists. And that's right, I'm back with another installment today where we're focusing on the two-piece iconic garage rock band from none other than Detroit Rock City, the White Stripes. The Stripes were a part of that garage rock revival scene that was kind of happening in the early 2000s that also brought bands like the Strokes and the Hives to the mainstream. Unfortunately, they aren't a band anymore, but Jack White, the leader, is still out there doing all sorts of various projects, from solo music to work with the Raconteurs, the Dead Weather. Oh yeah, he also runs his own record plant and company. However, during their time as an active rock band, they were still able to give us 6 great albums, which once again clashes with my whole top 5 thing because it means one of these albums is going to get left on the floor. We'll get into that one little album later, but for right now, let's go ahead and talk about my 5 favorite albums by the White Stripes. Number 5. The White Stripes. That's right, this is their self-titled debut record, recorded at Ghetto Recorders, which was an analog recording studio in an apartment loft in Michigan. Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground was actually written and recorded for this album, but it didn't actually see the light of day until White Blood Cells. We got a ton of great songs on this thing: Jimmy the Exploder, Stop Breaking Down, Astro, One More Cup of Coffee. There's a lot of good stuff on here. It's just a little long for me, which is why it's so far back on my list. I think these are some great blues rock songs coming from a young and hungry band, and a two-piece for that matter. They sure did know how to make a lot of fucking noise for a two-piece. I actually drove around suburban Michigan on a rainy afternoon with my friends one day because we were up there to see a show. And as we were driving around the suburbs, we had this first record playing on the radio, which we all thought just felt so perfect. And when you're listening to this stuff and you're actually there, it really does make sense that this music came out of garages from that area. It's not really a whole lot going on over there. Great album. It's just super long, so it's number 5 on my list. All right, number 4. Distill. This one was actually recorded in Jack and Meg's living room on an 8-track tape, and it was also recorded right after they divorced, which is just more fun and interesting lore for the whole family. But this is another great album. The living room charm is, of course, something that I love. I just think it sounds like a more tighter and concise version of that first album, where we don't get as many songs, but the songs we do have, I think, are just better. I also almost hear some kind of Beatles and even Wings influence on some of these songs on this record. This is where we start hearing some piano songs here and there. So yeah, it just kind of brings about that vibe. All right, number 3, Icky Thump. This record sounds like the Stripes in their final form, which actually kind of makes sense because this is their final record. This is the last White Stripes album, and ironically, it's actually the first one to have a title track. Recorded at Third Man, of course. This one is just way more rocked up than that last, whatever you want to call that last album. It just sounds way more true to themselves. We have a ton of bangers on this thing as well. Icky Thump, the title track, 300 Mile Per Hour Torrential Outpour Blues, Little Cream Soda, Rag and Bone, Catch Hell Blues. We even have the classic All in all, I think this thing's just peak Stripes. It's a shame we didn't get a couple more after this one, but it's always better to finish on a high note, right? All right, number 2. We're getting to the good stuff now. Although my list seems very ordinary for the average White Stripes fan, this is where I might get a little controversial, but I'm gonna go ahead and say number 2. Elephant. Yes, I know, this one has the songs everybody knows on it, and honestly, this album actually doesn't have as much fluff as some other albums I think have. This record mostly just focuses on that high-energy blues rock sound that they're ultimately known for. This one was actually recorded over 2 different studios in London. My favorite songs on this thing are Black Math, I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself, which is a cover, Girl You Have No Faith in Medicine, Little Acorns. There is one song on there also called The Hardest Button to Button, which I don't know if you've heard that one, but it's pretty good. Also, I feel like a lot of people gloss over that first song called Seven Nation Army. Ever fucking heard of it? More like ever walked outside your house before and gone anywhere? So yeah, as far as White Stripes albums go, this one's kind of the one I feel like everyone pays attention to, where it's kind of like the highest regarded, and I do think it's damn good, but I just don't think it's as good as my number 1 pick. And that, in fact, does bring us to my number 1, which is White Blood Cells. I gotta say, this one's probably my favorite White Stripes album. This one's currently the only one I own on vinyl, which kind of brings me some connection to it, and I've also actually been to Hotel Yorba, which was included in that Michigan trip I was talking about with my friends a little bit ago. Top to bottom, I think this thing's just a great rock album. This album was recorded in Memphis, Tennessee in just 3 days, which I know for a 2-piece probably doesn't sound very impressive, but for the songs that came out of the process, we'll say it's a good thing. I also typically overlook singles. I'm kind of a hipster in that way, but all the singles on this record are actually bangers, and I actually include them in some of my favorite songs, such as Hotel Yorba, Fell in Love with a Girl, Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground, even We're Gonna Be Friends. Expecting is also another one of my favorite songs on here that isn't really a hit, but I just think that song goes so hard. Overall, I think this is just the album I've personally paid the most attention to, and it's also just my favorite, and that's my reasoning behind it being my favorite. All right, now I suppose we should talk about that one album that got left out. Get Behind Me Sing. Now I gotta say, for an album with a badass title like that, it's not good. It's not good. Blue Orchid and My Doorbell are classics, and those songs rule, but other than that, the rest of this thing is very just what the fuck coded. It's just way too piano based for me, and they're doing all this stuff with like vibraphones and marimbas and shit. It's just not the White Stripes to me. I understand getting a little experimental here and there, trying some stuff out, but maybe just do it on like 1 or 2 songs and not like 8 or 9 of them. It's just a little too like folky and country based for me as well, and I'm just not into that shit. But obviously this is a classic garage rock band that everybody of this generation should know about if you're into this kind of music. Now it's your turn. Let me know what your White Stripes list is looking like below. Tell me why my list is great, why it sucks. I'm delighted to hear your thoughts either way. Once again, I also have my own music right now that you guys can listen to wherever you stream music. So please go check that stuff out if you guys have some time, if you're looking for some new jams. Other than that, thank you guys for watching this. Let me know who I should top 5 next below, and stay tuned.